Okay, how's it going? We good? Yep. Okay, that was so awkward. And don't believe Lance if he tells you that I told him to say that. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to grab that water. May I do that, please? Thank you. When Lance does this, I feel like I'm drinking with him. This thing is so good, this microphone, so shall we enjoy together? Here we go. Okay. Thank you. It's a real privilege to be here this morning and to be on this side of the podium. I'm a walker, so I like to walk around and use my hands and stuff like that. I'm not quite as Italian as Lance, and he's always like, and I'm not quite like that. But I do like to walk around and get around a little bit. Well, my name is Jeremy. I think some of you may see me around here. I'm friends with a bunch of us in here, but some of you don't know me. I'm Australian. That's why I speak like this, the Lord's language. Hey, I'm just saying. See, this is preparing you for heaven. No, you know what? It's really interesting to me. I actually once had an angel appear to me and speak to me, and Australian accent. I kid you not. I'm looking at this dude, he looks very serious, and Australian accent, and I'm like, okay, you got my attention. So that was good. God knows how to speak to us, doesn't he? He knows how to relate to us, and that was one of the big takeaways from that time. I work with Youth with a Mission, often known as YWAM. We have a training campus down here in Lakeside. In fact, I just got an email early this morning, Laura, you probably saw that one too, that we have a team that landed in the Czech Republic today. So from our discipleship training school. So we're kind of all connected, aren't we? The church, us here, mission down there. Isn't it amazing? There are people going out into the nations from different places all over this valley. We don't know. And that's just part of the benefit and really the health of the body of Christ that we know about that. We learn it from each other. So I'm in YWAM. Anyone else in here either in YWAM or have been in YWAM or for years have been a wannabe YWAM? Look at that. We're out there. We are among you. That's right. We're out there. Always. But I don't want to introduce myself as someone who works with YWAM. I would just rather have you know me as someone who goes to this church and is just privileged to be able to serve this morning and I guess help Lance out as he's gone and I can preach for him. And there are many people in here who could do what I'm doing. So it's just a real privilege. There are no YWAMs in heaven. There are no Baptists. There are no AOG. There's no anything like that. Presbyterians or Lutherans, there are only disciples of Christ, right? Yes. And when we get to heaven, I'm out of a job. Looking forward to that day. Yes, looking forward to that day, Endless buffets of food, as much as you can eat without putting on weight, I'll stay up all night watching movies and stuff like that, never look tired. Awesome stuff. And I just want to say that because all of us are here a part of the body. And I'm going to be speaking to you out of the Old Testament today. But God, although He's been around for infinity, that's what it means when you're infinite. No beginning and no end. He's not old to us. He's not outdated, not irrelevant. And He can apply Himself in any moment in time. And the amazing thing about God is that He applies Himself in the moment of our life today, right now, tomorrow, yesterday. Where was He? Where is He? He's there. So I'm going to be going right back to the beginning, towards the beginning of the Old Testament, but I really believe it's a message for us for today and for the rest of our lives. And when I just prayed up here about we're being a short-term team, but sowing into the long term. It doesn't get any more long term than the eternal. And that's what we get to do with God. Not just for God, but with God every day. So, here are 2 questions for you that I'm sure you've asked yourself. If you haven't, you will. Who am I and why am I here? Who am I and why am I here? Now, I can't answer that question for you this morning. If some of you are starting to get cynical or excited, I cannot answer that exactly for you, but obviously we can talk about the one who can. These are 2 questions that are fundamental to all human existence and reasoning. Who am I and why am I here? Some people start asking that question when they're 8, then they forget about it and go do something else. Then they come back when they're 16, they think a lot more about it, move on. When you're in college, when you're in work, you're married, you're older, when you're 80 years old. Who am I now? And why am I here? And some people that I've spoken to are old. The question has been, who am I? What have I done? And why am I still here? You know, I prayed over my mother at her birthday. She's generally has problems with health, and at her 65th birthday. And I prayed over her that she would, I felt like the Lord said, what are you going to do with the next 15 years of your life? And for me, I'm like, okay, 15 years, make a plan, whatever. To her, that was like, yes. 15 more, easy, no problem. She has poor health. God never stops working through us. And you know what? He started a long time ago, and he's still going at it for us today. So these questions, who am I and why am I here, they can also be very, very unsettling, can't they? What am I doing with my life? Look what I did. How do I get past that? How can God get past that? What are my gifts? We love to talk about spiritual gifts in the church. Well, what are they? How do I apply that? How will I discover that? God, what's your idea? God loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. And yet sometimes when we start asking these questions of who am I and why am I here, sometimes we ask ourselves the questions, does he really love me? Should he? What are you going to do with me, God? It's real. And I want to take you back to Moses, because Moses was no different. Now here's the deal, right? Moses, when we look at the Bible and we look at Moses, we have the privilege, especially in this nation and in Western nations where we have 18 versions of the Bible, not only on our shelf at home now, but in a few keystrokes away on our laptop, right? Moses didn't have that. So we look back at Moses through the history of the scriptures and what we know actually happened, you know? And we think, man, Moses, he was just waiting to be unleashed. He was the man, he took the people out of Egypt, led them to the promised land, you know, raised up Joshua and Caleb, and yes, we lost a few million on the way, but, you know, grew up a whole new generation, discipled them, walked with God, was called the most humble man on earth. Admittedly, he wrote that himself, but nonetheless, a little bit of a strange thing to think about. Did amazing things with God. And we look back through the lens of Scripture, and we look at John the Apostle, we look at Paul the Apostle, we look at Peter. And we see Peter as Peter, but he only knew himself as Simon before Jesus, right? And they're only part of a culture that was waiting desperately for the Messiah. They knew he was coming. They didn't know who. Then we look at John the Baptist with what did happen, and yet we see him in prison saying, are you really the one? Is this for nothing? Why am I here in prison? Who am I? I thought I was the one to usher in the Messiah. Am I? We look back through history, the Maccabees before the Gospels start. The group of people, this family line who were zealous against the Romans, and they were, then you have the Herods who were after them, and these people, these Jewish people, and the groups going all the way back into history, the prophets, Malachi, Zephaniah, the kings, Hezekiah, Josiah, David, all the way back. We look through all of this. And what I want to do is challenge you to go back to the beginning of before Moses was like the patriarch, one of the patriarchs of the faith. To go back to Moses, the loser. The guy who he thought, who am I? And why am I here? And Moses didn't have that benefit. He only had who he was, but more importantly, who he thought he was. So where was he? Who was he between Exodus 2 and 3? Go to Exodus 3. Oh, this is me now, isn't it? Oh. This is Exodus 3, 1 through 4. Okay? This is the NRSV. It's what I'm reading from. You guys can follow along. We all know the story. This is when he encounters the burning bush, okay? When a lot of us consider Moses getting his calling. Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led his flock beyond the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of a bush. He looked and the bush was blazing, yet it was not consumed. Then Moses said, I must turn aside and check out this great sight and see why the bush is not being burned up. When the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses. And he said, here I am. This is the text that we're going to focus on this morning. You don't really know what you have until you wake up and you got nothing. You don't really know who you have or who you are until you wake up. No job, everything's changed, maybe no family, no role, no job description. All the identity pieces get drawn. That's when you really are faced with the reality of, who am I? Who am I? And for those who've gone through times like that, it's harsh. It can be really harsh. But when we look back at those times, they can be so full of fruit. Because all of us say, Lord, break down the walls. Lord, give me revelation. Lord, I want to grow in you. But we tend to recoil a little bit from the crisis that revelation brings. Because revelation will bring a crisis. And Moses had a major revelation when he was 40 years old. He felt like he wasn't an Egyptian and he wasn't a Hebrew. And this is going back into Exodus 2, where we all know the story of Moses, right? Hebrew put in a basket, goes down the Nile. One of the daughters of Pharaoh goes and grabs it, takes it. Oh, look, it's a really cute baby. I will keep him. Who am I going to have to wean this child? God ordains that Moses' mother comes along and raises the child, but in Pharaoh's household. So here we have Moses, a Hebrew, raised by Egyptians with all the splendor and no doubt the advantages of education, hygiene. Egyptians, very clean people, very smart people. Okay? Education, like I said, good food, no whip on the back, nothing like that. But then he goes out and he sees an Egyptian soldier, right? Beating up a Hebrew slave, and he goes over there when no one's looking. Later on he checks it out and he goes over there and says, I'll give you a little bit what for. And he takes him and he kills him, okay? Beats him up and kills him. Now he's all freaked out because people are going to find out, hides the body. The next day he goes out, sees two Hebrews fighting. He's like, brothers, why do you fight against each other? They look at him and they say, and you would be who? What are you going to do? Kill us like you killed that Egyptian? Freaks out. He realizes his deed has not gone unseen. And in fact, it says that Pharaoh was looking for him after that. And he runs. He runs, right? He runs, goes into the desert. Listen to me on this one. As far as I can tell, this is what had happened. Marries the daughter of a pagan priest. Meanwhile, Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, who was the priest of Midian. Now, I'm not an Old Testament scholar, but from what I can tell, there's a good likelihood the law hadn't come, the priesthood hadn't come yet, okay? to the Hebrews. Here is a priest of Midian. I think a pagan priest. Now later on we see Jethro coming back to Moses' camp and giving him some wisdom. So I believe he came to believe in Yahweh. But at this point, this is who Moses was. The Egyptians don't want me. The Hebrews don't want me. Who am I? Why am I here? I think he got a glimpse of his calling somehow, but he was 40 years early. And so he runs, he marries a pagan priest, and he lives there, he serves there for 40 more years, tending the flock of sheep that don't even belong to him. And here he is, 80 years old. Go 80. 80 years old, right? Taking care of a bunch of goats and sheep that don't even belong to him. You tell me he was feeling good about himself. I don't think so. You can stay as long as you want, brother. I'm feeling it. And as he's walking along, taking care of these sheep that don't belong to him, on an area he knows very well, been there tons of times before, he sees something. And it's this really weird thing of this plant that's on fire, but it's not being burned up. Okay? And I want to talk quickly about that, because I've got to talk quickly here. Okay. What are some factors surrounding the bush? Because when we look at this, I've given you all that background to go from here back to there, to lead you back up to this point here. How Moses is cruising in the desert, and he sees this bush that is burning and not being consumed. And as he says, it's kind of weird to think about it, he's walking along and he says, check that out. That is a bush that is being burned, yet not being consumed. I must turn aside to look at this great sight. Why the bush is being burned and not consumed. And he cruises over, right? That's what he says. This is his thought process. What's surrounding the bush? God knew who, where Moses was. He knew where he was. Now, not just, on the mountain. He knew who he was. He really knew who he was. He knew his heart. He knew his identity issues, his rejection issues, disappointments. He knew which rock to put it behind, Okay, cue the bush. Here he comes. He's coming on the left. Here he comes. Ready? 3, 2. Would you get down from... Okay, go now. Bush, go. Right? He knew exactly where it was. There's the bush. So he knew where... think about this, right? Did he stumble across it? He didn't. Yeah. God knew exactly where and when. And the amazing thing is that this is why I think God called to him by name twice. He says, Moses. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Moses. Me? This is pretty funky. This bush is burning and it knows my name. Moses. That, I think, we could just stop right there. That is awesome. When he turned aside, right? Think about that. God knew which bush to use. He knows how to get his attention. It wasn't a rock that was bouncing up and down or talking. It wasn't a bird that was talking. He didn't even send an angel in armor with a huge sword that was drawn. It was a bush that was burning. He knew how to get his attention. Yeah. It was obedience that drew the response. Now, obedience, I don't know, maybe that's a bit of a strong word there, but it was the initiative that drew the response. When he turned aside, it reminds me of Peter in Luke 5, when they've been fishing all night and they kind of see Jesus there when they become disciples. Jesus comes along and he says, have you caught anything? No. He says, well, why don't you cast your nets onto the other side of the boat for a catch? There's an idea for you, fishermen. Being a carpenter, I'm sure that's what they were thinking. They're like, okay, we know you're some sort of prophet. But really, we're fishermen. We've done it all night. You make tables, dude. And they say, But this is what Peter says. Very, very profound. He says, because you say so, I will do it. And he does it. And the miracle happens, right? When he turned aside, went towards him. I kind of wonder, how many bushes did Moses see that were burning? How many times did he see a burning bush? He walked past, he goes, that's odd. He's out there. There's one of those bushes again. Yeah. We don't know, do we? But when he turned aside, the Lord said, Moses, Moses. Good. So let's have a look at what the burning bush looked like. This has got to be one of the big questions in history. Well, I got something for all age groups here today. Here we have toilet roll Moses with his bush that is blazing. That looks cool. He looks like he's already saved too. That's good. So there we go. Here's another idea. What did the bush look like? If you're into cartoons and animation, I found this one. Pretty amazing. The sheep don't seem to be very interested, but Moses is like, dang, it's hot. Okay. That's cool. Found that one. I think I kind of always imagine it like that, you know, some sort of like, I don't know, ugly looking kind of branch thing that's just burning. Flame, real flames, but there's an idea. Moving through history, there's another one. Artistic rendition there. There's Moses like, whoa, it's burning and it's glowing, and he's got his shoes off there, which is cool. His sandals off. Moving into more modern art, there's God coming out of the bush. We have all these different images, right? What did the bush look like? What would it look like? This is a really, I had to put this up here because it's just so interesting how what religion has done to Christianity over the years. This is the classic Anglo-Saxon perspective of Moses meeting with God in the burning bush. I mean, you even have a cottage in the background. Okay, so I found that one too. What did it look like? What was it that drew his attention? Well, I have this for you. And I actually think that this is my favorite picture of the burning bush. I want to show you a video clip so we can kill the lights. And this comes from the Prince of Egypt. I love this. And I want you to pay personal attention to what I consider to be an element of the Father's heart of God in this. Okay, so let's do that.
Here I am. Take the sandals from your feet. For the place on which you stand is holy ground.
Who are you?
I am that I am.
I don't understand.
I am the God of your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
You were born of my mother, Yocheved. You are our brother.
What do you want with me?
I have seen the oppression of my people in Egypt, and have heard their cry.
Stop it! Leave that man alone!
So I have come down to deliver them out of slavery, and bring them to a good land. A land flowing with milk and honey. And so unto Pharaoh I shall send you. Me? Who am I to lead these people? They'll never believe me. They won't even listen. I shall teach you what to say.
Let my people go!
But I was their enemy. I was the prince of Egypt, the son of the man who slaughtered their children.
You've chosen the wrong messenger. How can I even speak to these people? Who made man's mouth? Who made the deaf, the mute, the seeing, or the blind? Did not I? Now go!
Moses, I shall be with you when you go to the king of Egypt. But Pharaoh will not listen. So I will stretch out my hand and smite Egypt with all my wonders. Take the staff in your hand, Moses. With it, you shall do my wonders. I shall be with you, Moses.
Okay. That's awesome, huh? I get chicken skin every time I see that. It's so good. It's so good, you know? Okay. Where are we going with this? Where are we going with it? What's your burning bush? That's where we're going today. What is your burning bush? God knows who you are now. He knew who you were before you knew him personally. Isn't it interesting? He says, Moses, Moses. And Moses turns around and he says, who are you, right? God is a personal God. You are personal to him.
Yeah, amen.
Even if you don't know him yet. Personally, you are personal to him. And he is waiting to meet you. I'm saying that because I'm wondering if there are people here who have heard about God but feel like they don't know God. And he knows you. He knows you. What's your burning bush? Do you recognize it? What is God using to get your attention? What are the things that he's using to make you to stop and to look and to ponder, to turn aside? No matter how hard I pray, I'm not going to get Gabriel at the foot of my bed telling me the plan for my life, right? It just hasn't happened yet. I'm not going to see a burning bush like this and say, oh, that's what it was. You know, it's like we need, God, he knows who we are and he knows what gets our attention. And he is pursuing us. He's made you in a way that you notice things, you see things that other people don't. That are interesting to you, that make you passionate, that might make you angry, that might make you want to love. What is your burning bush? Are you looking for it? Or are you waiting for it to be dropped in your lap? Here's an example. I was mentoring this guy years ago, and for a while, and we were talking, and I said, what do you think your spiritual gifts are? How do you operate like this? He goes, well, I don't know. I'm like, well, what do you like to do? See, God often matches our gifts with our likes, right? What do you like to do? He says, well, I don't know. I don't know. And kind of get all embarrassed, like, you know, he's like, oh, I don't know, I kind of would. I don't know, I just love to go to people in like worship times or just as I see them around the place or on the streets. I'd love to go to them and give them a word of knowledge. See, God is thinking this about you and he wants to tell you this. But all Christians do that, I know, don't they? Someone else who said, I always notice the people who are sick or lame or handicapped. I always notice those people. Wouldn't it be awesome just to go and just pray healing every time you see someone like that? But all Christians want to heal people, you know. No, we don't. We all say it's a good thing, right? But I don't walk around, no, who shall we heal today? All the time. But sometimes I'll see someone, I feel like, God, do you want me to pray for that person or not? But someone who has the gift of healing or is called to operate and represent God that way, I guarantee you out there, and you know who you are, you will always notice these things. We notice how many elderly are in church, how many children are here, how many people come alone. We kind of put church planting on a pedestal, which is great. And so when we see an empty building or a vacant building downtown, we think, well, that would be a good church. And that's great. But what about the person who sees and they go, you know what? That'd be a fantastic business opportunity. That'd be a great business right there. We could operate as a Christian thing or not, whatever it may be. What gets your attention? I walk by, I don't even notice it. But someone else, as they walk by, they're like, wow, that'd be great. Do you see what I'm saying? The different things. It's not just about what looks churchy to us. It's what does God put in your heart that he wants to work with you to achieve. Yeah, and this is the burning bush. Do you recognize it? Will you turn aside? Will you take the time to turn aside? Say, maybe this is God. Maybe it's not just me. Maybe it's just not just the way I'm supposed to behave or not. Maybe, ever felt odd because you seem to notice things either in ministry or in worship times or as you get in the street and you feel like, oh, you pray something out in the group and everyone kind of, you can just internally, you feel like they're all scratching their heads. What was he saying? I don't get it. Ever feel, no one ever feels like that, just me. You see something in the spirit, but others don't. And we kind of shy away from that sometimes. I would just really encourage you, just sit on that for a moment. Don't run away from it. Will you turn aside? Because it's obedience that draws a response. When Moses took a step towards the bush, he heard his name twice. Now, I'm not trying to land you this huge theology of works here, which means go out and do all these good things and then maybe God will talk to you. That is not living by grace. Okay? We're being driven by works, if that's the case. Who was Moses? He was a murderer and a runaway. Who was he? He wasn't Billy Graham. He was Moses in the raw before he became Moses. Right? Oh, I was using my wrong notes then. And here's the really trippy thing. It's not about us. It's not, isn't that weird? Here I am talking about us, and when I do this in other scenarios, often I'll break this up into two separate teachings, but I just wanted to go straight to it with you guys. Guys, it's not about us. Now, what does that mean? That God, didn't you say God gave me gifts and God gave me passions and likes and dislikes and flavors and stuff? Yeah, I did. I said exactly that. But it's not about us. Have you guys, like me, I used to read Moses, the calling of Moses, Exodus 3, and think, wow, Moses, that was easy for him, right? It was easy. It was easy. God intercepted him, gave him some miraculous sight to get his attention, calls him by name twice, then tells him exactly what he's going to do. And I think we read that in an egocentric way. That's what it means to get a calling. It wasn't about Moses. It wasn't about Moses, guys. It was about God's fulfilling his plan to redeem mankind.
Amen. Amen.
It was about the covenants that he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I will do this through you. It's about Genesis 1 and 2 being seen in Revelation 21 and 22. This is the vision of God, and in between is his mission to accomplish it, and it will happen. And we're living in that time, right? Let's go back to, is this the next one here? Just before he encounters the burning bush. After a long time, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites groaned under their slavery and cried out. Out of the slavery, their cry for help rose up to God. God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God looked upon them, the Israelites, and God took notice of them. Close your eyes. Fade to black. Okay, open your eyes. Meanwhile, Moses was keeping the flock of Jethro. You hear that? That's what was going on. And at the end, towards later on in chapter 3, from like 7 through 10, it says, hey, listen, we saw it on the, reality animation TV there. We saw it there. I've seen this. I am coming down. I am taking them to a land. It is time now. We're going to continue. And he's going to establish his people. And from that, it's going to become a kingdom. And then from that, it's going to come a kingdom that will never end. And from that, it's going to come Gary Hall and Jeremy West, right? James Fant, and these people who are here today because Moses. It's not just about us, guys. It's not about, God, give me my calling and then I'll see what I can do about it. It's like, God, how do you want to use me to build your kingdom? And here's the amazing thing about God. He knows that a lot of the time we don't even think like that. And he's like, that's cool. I can go there. That's all right. Remember, Moses, I'm God, you're not. It's okay. We'll go there. God is trying to get your attention. Even 80 years is not too late. And that was 80 years at the beginning of the burning bush. Not when he died 43 years later on. Will you turn aside? Your role plays a bigger role than you think. Never underestimate God in you. But here's the deal. It's not just about, oh, good, now I know my calling, or what am I going to get? Because it starts before that. And I felt very strongly about this. And maybe someone will respond, maybe 10 will, maybe nobody will. But in obedience, I really have to feel like I have to say this. See, because some of us are sitting here thinking, yes, Lord, I've been serving you for many years. And some have been thinking, I want to start serving you now. I'm getting my life in line. And there are other of us who may be sitting here today who are feeling like, I don't even know you. I want my calling, but I want to know you. And here's the thing. Jesus has been like that burning bush for some of us here for a long time. He has been trying to get your attention. He's been trying to get your attention. You come to church with a friend. Maybe you told them, yeah, I'm a Christian. I'll come again. Maybe you're at the end of your rope, like I was many years ago. Maybe you're wondering, what else is there out there? And it starts here. I'm going to leave this in. We're going to come back to it soon, but it starts there. But let me go back to something. Keep this in mind, right? This image of Jesus waiting for us, Jesus pursuing us, that he is the one who is calling us. And in the meantime, as we walk through life, now whether we know him personally or not, or we don't know him personally, in the meantime, we're walking through life. And I want to make it very real. I'm talking about downtown Kalispell. I'm talking about when you're in Haiti. I'm talking about when I'm doing whatever I'm doing. I'm talking about when I'm reading a book or watching TV. Can we roll that slideshow? What do you see? Okay. I need to go back to my last one there. Can you take me back to the final one of Jesus, please? Thank you. So I put those up there because I'm telling you it's the everyday that God is using to get your attention. What is your burning bush? But it starts with Jesus, realizing that God has been putting things in your way all the time to get you to take notice of Him. Now, most of it is in this building, we know Jesus. Well, we're growing in that. But there might be some of us who are thinking, man, you know what? Even coming to church this morning was a burning bush. And I'm just trying to connect the dots for us all here today. Connect the dots. Some of you have been brought here and it's time to turn aside. It's time to step aside. And God wants to pour out His calling on your life. Not to make you a slave, but to make you free. Not to make you a worker, but to bring fulfillment and freedom. And for others of us here, you're at a decision-making point. It's like, I don't know, I've been trying to do this for a while and I'm not sure. And there are people out there who are going to hell. And we think, well, what is my role in that? How do I help that? How do I stop that from happening? Or maybe that's like Lance's job. Well, I want to be used to pray for people and see them healed and see the dead raised. But I don't know, and I just don't know. God looked down upon them and He heard them. There were people crying out for help in Kalispell, in Columbia Falls. People were praying for missionaries to come to Haiti. They were praying for people to come to Cambodia. There were single mothers and fathers, and they're praying out to God. And God looked down and He heard them. Close your eyes. Meanwhile, in New Covenant Church, there was a group of people listening to the Lord. Meanwhile, there was a guy named Frank who sold tires. Meanwhile, there was a construction builder. Meanwhile, there was a doctor. Meanwhile, there was a teacher. Meanwhile, there was a guy called John who worked for Montana Fish, Parks and Wildlife. Okay, you can open your eyes. You get what I'm saying? Meanwhile is now while. It's here. And He has a calling and He's trying to get your attention. I would encourage you to turn aside. And what I'd like to do is for those people, what I'd like to do now, in my own fashion, is if you are here and you're feeling like God has been telling me to turn aside, and I haven't heard it like this before, but I'm realizing I've been seeing little burning bushes all the way along for the last year or 6 months, or maybe today. You realize God has been pursuing me. He's been trying to get my attention, but He wants me to take a step toward Him. I guarantee you He knows your name. And if you're here and you feel like I need to make that commitment to the Lord, to say, Jesus, You are the man now in my life. You are the God man. He is God. He knows what it's like to walk in your shoes. It wasn't easy because He was God. It was harder because He was God. The enemy gave Him no slack at all, wanting Him to fail. Yet He stayed pure and sinless and obedient because of love. He knows what it's like. So if that's you, if you feel like I want that calling, but the burning bush I'm at is like, I think it's God. God is calling me. He's calling me and He's saying, will you turn aside? Come to me now. If that's you, you can put your hand up. This is the safest place you will ever find. The safest place to say, God, I want to walk with You. Is there anyone out there? Okay. Awesome. That's awesome. I'm not going to drag this on until I get this is good. I saw that hand. What I'd like you to, if you're comfortable, you can come on up. If you're not, then make sure you find me after the meeting. All right? For others of us here, you're feeling like, you know what? Maybe this is for me. I want to turn aside. God, I want to see, I think you're putting something in my heart. I'd like you to do this. I'd like you to think right now, what is it that you keep seeing? Is something grab you from the slideshow? Is it just something in your memory that you've heard that brought to mind right now? I'd like you to think about that just for like 5 seconds. Can you put your finger on it? Okay. Why don't you turn to the person next to you and say, hey, you know what? This could be it. If there's nothing, that's cool. There's no pressure. What I'm doing is trying to make you kind of like say it. Say it, and you'll remember it that way. Go on, do it. It's okay, we're not going to bite. Okay. We have the worship. Or Tiff, do you want to come up? Do something? Thanks.